Redditors who have gone were declared missing. What is your story? I left the abusive household I grew up in, leaving a note clearly stating my intentions to never return. An hour or two later I received a call from the police stating that I'd been declared missing. I explained to them my circumstances and they wished me well. Since I was of age, I was free. It'll be 3 years soon. I had almost the exact same experience when I was 16. A policeman came to see me to check I was okay, sat with me on a bench in a park, and asked me what my plans were. I told him I had money saved up, a stable full-time job, and a place to stay. We chatted for about 10 minutes, and then he wished me good luck and told me they wouldn't bother me again. I'm still very grateful to him for taking the time to talk to me and check I had everything I needed. Glad you're doing well now. This is something I wish more people knew. If you are of age, you have the legal right to disappear if you want. Don't be scared if the police contact you to check on a missing person report. They cannot and will not force you to return home if you just let them know you are okay and do not plan on going back. I was 8 and on vacation. Decided to go for a walk without telling anyone. Played all afternoon in the beach. Came at night. Why did you stay out so long? Did you get lost? Because I was having tons of fun. I made a sand fortress and watched it fight with the coming tide. I did not get lost. I have always been good with my bearings. You reminded me of my cousin. Suddenly he disappeared and everyone was frantically looking for him. Then he comes back a couple of hours later. Turns out he went to the convenience store without telling anyone, bought food and candy, then stayed behind the house to eat so that no one can see him and he doesn't have to share. I had a mental breakdown in 2015 after losing a job, after having a hard year. So I packed a bag, got on my motorbike and rode to a party spot, Gold Coast. I got out enough cash to hold me over for a week and turned off my mobile before I left town. I spent a whole week just hitting the beach, partying, hitting bars and clubs. I stayed at a backpacker hostel and hung out with random backpackers. Overall, it was an amazing and refreshing week. I left to ride back home. Just before the Great Dividing Range, I got pulled over by the cops. Turns out, my 2 coworkers I saw after I got fired were worried, so they came by my house just to check up on me. My housemates then didn't see me for a few days, after being told that I'd been fired, so they searched town and reported me to the cops as missing. I had a known history of depression and suicidal tendencies. The cops searched through my records, no mobile phone activity, no social media activity, no contact with family members. So it turns out while I was off trying to just escape my shitty life for a week, everyone thought I'd killed myself or something. My license plate number was flagged, so when I went past the highway patrol it must have come up on their computer to pull me over. The cop was actually quite nice. He mainly just wanted to know I was okay. He called in and had me removed as a missing person. In Australia, once you're listed as a missing person, you have to be cited and verified by a police officer to be removed. I got home 8 hours later to a lot of worried people. I honestly thought no one gave a fuck about me. If I knew it was going to cause so much trouble, I would have at least left a note. Man, that's great that you had so many people worried about you, and I think that's a great sign to always keep your head up even when life's got you down. You have people who love you and will be there for you, even if you don't know it. The story of how I went missing is also one of my first memories. When I was 5, I went on holiday with my family to Scotland. We were in the middle of nowhere surrounded by nothing but land dominated by trees. There wasn't much to do, so my sister and I played hide and seek. I thought it would be a great idea to hide right next to the front door of the cottage we were staying in, inside of a giant bush. I watched my sister look for me for about 5 minutes, until she clearly gave up and went inside. However, I never give up on anything, and decided to stay until I was found. After a short period, 15 minutes or so, more people started playing the game. I now watched my parents sprint around in front of me, while I silently giggled in the bush thinking, I'm so good at this game. More and more people started to play, other holidaygoers in cottages nearby, park rangers and police. I stayed in that bush for hours and hours until it got dark, having the time of my life. My sister was only 7, so she didn't help look for me and just sat by the doorstep. As it got darker outside, my yellow jacket got brighter, and after a whole day of searching for me in the nearby woods, my sister realized I was stood right next to her. Best game of hide and seek ever. Honestly, this sounds like something I did. They say your kids get revenge by growing up to be just like you. I am dreading the day my son gets into hide and seek. Teach them a code phrase like, "Ollie Ollie oxen free." That means, "Come out now, the game is over, you've won." And how important it is they come out at that point, because it's no longer a game, and hiding when not playing a game is unsafe. I forget how old I was, but I was probably around 10. My friend and I started raking leaves for cash around our suburban neighborhood. We kept going house to house asking anyone who had a tree in their yard if they wanted them raked for $5. We eventually went to so many houses we got ourselves lost within the crisscross streets of the neighborhood, since we really never left our block of houses beforehand. Then the sun set and we found ourselves lost trying to recognize street names or anything familiar in the dark, with only street lights lighting the way. Eventually, as we're wandering lost, we hear cops' sirens and lights blare and pull over and ask for our names. We got picked up and taken back to our houses. It felt like a long drive to us 10-year-olds, but in reality it was like 4 blocks LOL. Boy, did we get the biggest scolding ever, and our parents took our hard-earned money. I was on vacation for 3 weeks. In the second week, my boss called me and asked if everything is okay because the police called them and told them that I was declared missing. My neighbor called the police because he didn't hear me for over a week and was worried about me. Was kind of a good feeling. Well, at least you know you have a good neighbor. I took my 3 children and did a flip to get away from their father, who had attempted to kill me in front of them. I drove around 150 miles away. We were given a room in a woman's refuge in a coastal town. While the processing papers went through, the children asked to go to the beach. Even though it was November and cold, they were happily making sandcastles when I noticed a photographer. He kept directing the camera towards us, but casually tracked away when I looked up. I was worried that the photos could give away our location, so went to speak to him, but I couldn't catch up, so left it. I found out later that I had been reported as missing and a danger to the children by their father. We did not stay in the refuge long, as I never felt completely safe there after that. I went to rehab. I don't know why I didn't think to tell anyone, but I was a drug addict, so my brain was mush. My now ex-boyfriend was the only person who knew. About a week in, I got called into the main office at the rehab and was told that my mother got a hold of them, freaking out and telling them that I had been missing for a month. She was exaggerating, but they legally weren't allowed to tell her that I was there. So I had to call her to explain the situation. When I got out, I had messages from tons of people asking if I was alive, and found out even my old job was contacted, LOL. I found out that my best friend and my brother messaged my ex-BF, and he ignored them and never told me that they contacted him. If he had, I would have told him to tell them where I was, and the whole thing could have been avoided. I felt really bad about the whole situation because it stressed a lot of people out. Well, sometimes when you're on a bunch of drugs, you just need to get away and get clean. This was about 10 years ago. I had just moved to California with my ex-husband, and the downstairs neighbor in our first apartment was a crazy drug addict that would always bother and harass us. One day, the next-door neighbors decided to rearrange their apartment, and my downstairs neighbor came up threatening to kill me, thinking I was making that noise on purpose. She was a nightmare to deal with. I was sneaking out of my own apartment just so she wouldn't hear me and come running upstairs to hang out. Anyways, I reported this anonymously to the apartments and filed a police report. Apparently this lady had many complaints about her to begin with. After the report, my ex picked me up and we went out for lunch. Well, those dumbasses at the apartment complex went and talked to her and told her everything I had said. Came back to find her knocking on our door screaming. We kept driving and thought, well, fuck. Went to Walmart, got some camping gear and drove off to go camp at Yosemite for the weekend to escape. I believe we managed to sneak into our app to sleep for a few hours and told another neighbor a quick, "Oh, just going camping this weekend." And I sent texts to my mother, brother and sister. Well, only the text to my sister went through. So the last thing my mom heard from me was about the ordeal with the downstairs neighbor threatening to kill me, and then nothing. Gone for 4 days, come back to cell service, and my phone is flooded with frantic voicemails from my mother and brother. They filed a police report thinking my downstairs neighbor had murdered us and was convinced she was wearing our skin as a mask. She didn't believe the other neighbor when they said, "Oh yeah, they went camping." She thought, "That's a cover-up." My daughter has never even been camping, which was true. That was the first time. After a 3-day ordeal, they finally call my sister to report the bad news that I was murdered. She laughs and tells them I'm camping, and my mother pauses and says, "What? How do you know this?" She texted me and told me, "Why didn't anyone bother calling me when this all started?" I get back into cell service, hear these messages, and immediately call the parents and call off the missing persons report. After a few years, I tried to bring it up as a joke. "Hey, remember when you thought I done got murdered? What a crazy weekend that was." Still no laughs. Maybe a few more years need to pass. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.